All right, everybody. It's the Jere Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. Today, we have on the show Jeff Wilson with TTR, Sotheby's International Realty, on, by the way, how to break 100 million in annual sales. Jeff, good to see you.
Jere, it's wonderful to see you. It's been a long year with you absent in it.
You're right. It's been like longer than a year with all COVID and everything else, even though we're finally getting out of it.
Thank goodness, right? I can't wait to see people face to face again. Until then, Zoom will have to do.
I feel like we're never really going to see one another. I feel like it's like this thing. Like one day, not really, just kidding.
Let's hope.
Exactly. Hope. Anyway, there goes the strategy. Just kidding.
Just hope. It'll all work out.
Really clever today. Jeff, you have broken 100 million in sales, and we were like, we've got to get on the podcast and talk about this. We haven't even talked about this yet. So where do we begin with that? Should we start with your story first, how you got in, do a review real quickly? You've got three other interviews on our show.
Sure. I'll be honest with you. I started 33 years ago when it was hardly a profession. I kind of tripped into it because I had nothing else to do, to be honest with you. There were a few full-time people. There were no such thing as teams or even assistants. I mean, it was the Stone Ages compared to what most people are used to. I kid you not. I started before the fax machine, long before personal computers, even the internet. I mean, it was literally a different landscape in terms of the tools we had available to us and how we did our business. And I was 22, to be honest with you. So I was just a really young 22. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, truly, I didn't even know you had to order a termite inspection when you sold a house. I mean, literally, I didn't know anything. And and I've had a lot of coaching over the years and tried a lot of business models and finally kind of grown into where we are now. And it's been a journey for sure.
Before fax machines, I'm like, wait, let's start over and let's talk about Jeff Wilson's plastic surgeon. Is that the esthetician?
It's called Kiehl's moisturizer, and I'm very small in the screen.
Right, like Jeff, everybody, today Jeff is doing this interview on like no sleep because this market's so crazy, but he's that great of a friend and agent that he's still here for us. So thank you. But tell us a little bit about, so there's where you are from like pre-fax, like I don't even know those days, to now you're breaking 100 million in sales. You've been an agent for years. So how did you break into it? Like, how did you become successful? And then we're going to hone really on like, how do you break 100 million?
So I would say that there were different phases of my career, and part of it at the very beginning was just gaining clients, right? I mean, nobody called me to say, hey, will you work with me? Like that literally never happened. Zero times, right? So I had to make a million phone calls. I used to go after expired listings because at least I could narrow the pool to people that at least had attempted to do something. Right? It didn't work out. And now I could maybe step in and make it work out. And frankly, I got really good at it. But I will say that it might have been my mindset, and I'll own that. It was my mindset that there was a very combative relationship with the sellers. I mean, there were probably some lovely people in there, but basically I had to go in there with my boxing gloves on and my dish what are those things, like dish gloves or whatever that you wear? I had to I had to box them to like get the price where it needed to be, and then I had to clean up their houses. Now, mind you, I didn't physically do that, but that was the battle, like telling people, frankly, your house is ugly and it's not going to sell and it's dirty and it's overpriced. So, I mean, in essence, it was a very combative relationship. And I was probably pretty diplomatic about it and pretty good at it, because even as a fairly new agent, I was selling and listing, 5 and 10 houses a month. But, and again, this was my mindset. I didn't hold on to those people. I didn't continue to develop relationships with those people. I felt like I had a job to do. I went in, I did the job, and then I moved on to the next one. And it wasn't until maybe like the second third of my career that I started figuring out like, hey, I better keep people around. There's no reason to keep reinventing the wheel. And to be honest with you, I was almost on my way out the door. I was tired of the grind, and literally what I said to myself was, there's no residual in this business. I do all this work and I have to keep doing all this work, and like nothing carries forward. I actually thought, well, maybe I should sell insurance, because whenever you sell insurance and somebody renews their policy, you get paid again. But it didn't occur to me that I could, and I know that's kind of stupid, but I'm a slow learner, that these people could, if you will, pay me again, like they could come back and work with me again. I didn't get that. I was so busy learning just how to do this and finding clients.
Yeah.
It was a deal-based business for sure. And then I would say the second third of my career, the next 10 years, was a slow shift into a more of a relationship-based business where, I was there long after the sale. Even though I wasn't getting paid, I was checking in on people and seeing what they might need and how things are going, and, and just staying in touch with them and learning about their lives. And then I would say the third phase of my business is I've kind of taken that to, and I don't mean to sound full of myself, but a bit of an art form, like just kind of the well-placed phone call, the well-placed text, the really thoughtful question, the nice gift in the mail that they weren't expecting, or even things in person. I mean, I know this last year is kind of the anomaly, but I'm really good at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and like cocktail parties and ice skating events, and come to our farm for a beautiful buffet on the lawn overlooking the lake. I like to create really special moments and include people. And I think if I just kind of do what I'm really good at and what I'm naturally wired to do, I attract people that vibe with that. And the more we spend time together, frankly, the more business we do together. So I think it just kind of feeds on itself. Like when I was 22, I could have invited you to my 1-bedroom apartment that had a faux finished wall and boiled you an egg. And that might have been fine. I'm not trying to dismiss that, but it's not what I do today.
So, right. But you've just broken 100 million in the middle of like COVID. So you weren't probably doing cocktail events.
No. I think it was kind of the residual of everything that I had done before, and I think in reality, there were plenty of agents that just crushed it during COVID. And mind you, we have 2 homes, and, my husband's business, he's a dentist, was shuttered, and apparently my business was also shuttered for at least a couple months, only I can't even remember how long, and I just thought, well, which house do we hand back to the bank first? If we're making zero money and we have all these expenses for staff and, rent and blah, 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 how are we going to survive? And no sooner did I really kind of think about that seriously than, I got 1 client, then I got another one, then I got 3, then I got 7, and suddenly I'm off to the races. And, and again, I'm not sure that I did anything special. I just think that it was kind of an accumulation of everything that I had done before, that enough people thought about me when they thought, hey, we want fill in the blank. And my book was full again.
What is your secret sauce when it comes down to doing the business? Because sure, you develop the relationships, but there's probably a level of competency or what makes you better that gets that business coming back to you and not to the other agent, because there's a lot of competition in your market.
Yeah, I really consider myself their real estate advisor more than their salesperson, right? And I think that, not that all my clients are maybe super high level, but because they're not, but I think that people trust and appreciate somebody in an advisory role before like a salesperson's role, because there are times where I'll look at somebody and I'll go, I'm not sure this is the right time for you to sell, or I'm not sure this is the right house for you. I think we should keep looking. And I think you garner trust when you are honest with people. I mean, you are paid, or they will ultimately pay you when they transact with you, to be honest with them and to help them make the best decision for themselves in that moment.
Well, you've used the word trust a lot. It's like really what people want is to know that they're working with someone they can trust and who can hear them. And you talked about advisor. Well, I found in talking to a lot of new agents and then talking to a lot of $100 million agents that there's a like almost like when you're newer, you don't realize you're not a salesperson, you're an advisor. And there's a lot of podcasts and training out there that speak to our businesses if we are salespeople. And then as we become really experienced, we realize like the real deals come out of being an advisor, but knowing what that means to be an advisor, for example, knowing their portfolio, knowing, a lot more about them than just the house they're selling this month or even this year. How can you speak? Because I know you have a lot of interlaced relationships on that level, but give us a little more about that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the house that you're showing in your background right now, is a house that I've sold basically twice in 5 months. I have a client that I've worked with for couple decades at this point. I started with their first house, sold them that one, sold them another house in Potomac. Then they're like, we want to move to Virginia. I'm like, no problem. So we're consulting, I'm advising about like traffic patterns and school districts and, value in one neighborhood versus another. And I sold them the house behind you. And interestingly, they never moved in.
What?
She didn't like it. She didn't like it.
Wow.
So they never moved in. So I'm still in touch with her. And now I'm showing them houses again, literally like a month after they close on this one. And we're looking here and we're looking there. And I found them an off-market deal and they bought it. And it's like 5 blocks from that house. And without even maybe asking them, I said, I have a buyer for your home. And the truth is, I did. So some friends of mine had looked at the house behind you before my other clients bought it. And I knew it was the right house for them. And so, I brought them through and they bought it. So that house just closed for a second time. It closed in November and it closed in April.
Oh, there you go. And look at, like, you couldn't have forced that kind of deal. That'd be hard. It's like you take the pieces of the puzzle and look at them, take a minute and put them together as opposed
That's exactly right. We looked at different houses and arguably the second buyer, the second time around, was kind of looking at the same trade-offs of like, do we move here and we get this, or do we move there and we get that? And, because I know my clients really, really well, let's say the second round, I'm like, this isn't the right house for you. You can't fix this up and make money. This isn't the right house for you because you're always going to have that road near your pool. This isn't the right house for you. And I was able to really tell them that with all sincerity because they're my friends and I wanted them to make the right decision. And frankly, the one that they bought is the right house for them for so many reasons. It's in the right location. It's a super easy commute to DC. It's a killer school district. It already has a pool. It backs to the woods and it needs a renovation, which is what they love to do. So it was the perfect right house for them. And when I kept telling them what they've told me that they wanted, this house made sense for them. So you can't do that if you're, grabbing a lead off of Redfin, and getting paid to put your lockbox key in a lockbox, and then pretend you're going to advise anybody to do anything. I mean, I'm the complete antithesis of Redfin, as I know most of us are. I mean, maybe I'm not special, but we really do take a role in our clients' lives and in transitioning them from one property to another based on what is important to them. And if you don't really know that, you can't begin to discuss their needs and how a particular property or not is going to meet their needs. So I think it's just a very different level of a relationship.
And I think some of it was just to go back a little bit, being a new agent, you need the money, you need to win the deal. And you didn't stop needing money, or I haven't, but you then cultivate the relationships to realize, I think for me, I was like, wait, I actually have a lot to offer these people besides like getting them to list a house with me so I can make a commission. Is there a story that you have that you would share that was like, and there's probably a series of them, but there's any one moment that comes in mind where you're like, oh, wait a minute, I might need to adjust.
Yes. Well, it was kind of that seminal moment, if that's even the right use of that word, where I was making more money than I had ever made up to that point. And I was sick of it because it was like the churn and burn. And not that I tried to burn people, that's so not the point, but I had a goal, and it was get that thing to the closing table, and then it was to go find another one. And so I was just tired of it. I didn't find any real value in that because I value helping people. And yes, I could say I was helping them by, getting rid of the house that they no longer wanted to live in, but it was so myopic. It was the only thing that I was to do for them, And so my point is that I was on my way out of the business when I walked into a specific seminar. It was actually Brian Buffini at the time. And in my mind, I'm like, hey, if this doesn't work, or if this isn't some kumbaya moment, I'm out of here. I'm going to go sell insurance. I'm just kind of done with this. And so to me, it showed me very much that yes, we need money and we have to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff. But once you get good at that, it's not about the money. It's got to be about something else, right? And I realize if there's newer agents that, don't have a lot of income coming in, like, it's about the money. I want the money. And I do too. I've got probably an expensive life with 2 houses and 3 little girls in private school. And I like nice things. I don't think that I blow a lot of money, but nonetheless, I've got bills to pay like we all do. But it is so not about the money for me right now. I mean, there's plenty coming in. I'm not complaining. But once that's kind of taken care of, then you have to find some other value in this. And it was walking into that seminar that I realized that I wasn't finding the right value in the work that I was doing. And I needed to look for a different way to work in this industry to truly feel like I was contributing to people's lives. And so that's when I started, as I would say, the second, third, if you will, of my career so far, because it's certainly not over, the relationship-based business model where you actually do know what your people are thinking and what they want, and you have those conversations specifically, so you garner their trust. There's that word again, and you can truly serve them.
Well, I think there's a fear that if I do that, if I take my eye off the dollar, what if it stops coming? What if I go broke because I'm too nice or am too charitable?
Well, make no bones about it. Like I'm not a pushover when it comes to negotiating, right? Like
that's why what you have to do is so valuable and such a contribution.
Yeah, I know my value. And I know this sounds terrible, but I get a big check on a big deal and I'm like, I should have been paid more.
But you know what?
I should have been paid more.
Yeah, well, because when you start it's funny, from new agent to experienced, you start seeing the difference that you make and you're like, whoa, like this isn't just something where I've got some license, so I have the right to go get between myself and a house and pick up part of the sell, 6 or whatever percent people charge on a sell price, or 3, whatever it is. But it's like, this is like, I'm coming in and like literally this deal is going to make or break in a huge way on the brokers, because that's what we're doing, is brokering it.
Yeah, and right now it's kind of interesting. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've lost a few clients in this market because they went with people that they thought were more expert in whatever area they were in. And that really hurts. But the good news is that they were just but a drop in the bucket compared to everything else that's going on. And I'm like, look, I can either focus on the one drop that's spilled out or the 10 cups that are still in the bucket. Like, let's keep our eye on the 10 cups. But the flip side to that is I've also gained quite a few clients in this market, let's call it, that weren't well advised by their, at this point, former agent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that our ability to create success for people is rooted in our ability to advise them well. Mm-hmm. And arguably the former agents were not advising these people well. Most of them were buyers and they lost houses, and not that my clients don't lose houses, they do, let's be real, but it's how they lose houses is a whole different story. And and again, it's about storytelling. I just had one client lose a house, mind you, they just got the next one. And I had to relate to them the 2 times in the past when I bought houses in the past, including the one I'm sitting in now, where I lost a house before I got the one that I wanted, or the one that I ended up with, which ended up being the right one. So I was able to relay that story to them 2 times and to give them the confidence that they were going to find not only a house, but probably the one that they liked the most. And sure enough, for the last couple I was mentioning, they lost one house with me. They shouldn't have. They should have gotten that one, but we'll skip the details. We wrote, frankly, the same offer on the next one, and he looked at me and he goes, "This is the best house that I've ever been in. I like this so much better than any of the others." And I'm like,
See?
we got it, and we got it, right?
Exactly. That's beautiful. So I'm going to pivot on you now because we've got a few minutes left. We've got about 15, so we'll talk on this for 10. But you don't do 100 million without a little support. Tell us a little bit about how your support/team system is set up so that you do that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I am not an island unto myself. We've all come through an interesting year this past year. In case you're listening to this in 2025, we just went through a global pandemic in 2020 and nobody left their homes. So we'll just give you some context.
Right now it's April of 2021. So anyway.
Yeah, so like we moved to our
May.
country house.
May.
Just turned May. Fair enough. I'm lucky if I even remember the year, seriously. So COVID hit and we bolted for our country house, because there we've got like 32 acres and a swimming pool, and or we could be safe and outside and whatever. But I was now living an hour outside my market, and my phenomenal assistant Jen was home with her 2 kids, right? So she wasn't going anywhere. I was home with my kids mostly. I wasn't really going anywhere. And then I have my other young associate, who's kind of my mini me, as I call him, Hugh. Frankly, at the beginning of the pandemic, he wasn't going anywhere. So we had to figure this out, right? There was a time where I was literally on FaceTime with my contractor before a photo shoot. I'm like, no, straighten that pillow over there. No, see that one? Oh yeah, move that corner down. Oh yeah, open those curtains a little more. I mean, literally it was figure it out, because it had to be done, right? I couldn't just be like, oh, this is COVID, we can't do anything right, we can't do it well. No, our clients still expected everything to be done right and everything to be done well. So the point is, like, our team has not changed. However, how we are all working together has changed. And I think that is going to be somewhat of a permanent change, right? The 3 of us used to be in the office 5 days a week. I've only gone to the office 3 times in a year to collect mail. I don't really envision going back to the office. So my phenomenal assistant, Jennifer Pinkston, is kind of the quarterback of the team. She's there on the computer, on the phone, like, writing contracts and just keeping deadlines and helping with marketing and just kind of keeping the machine running. And then I'm out meeting clients and, doing showing appointments and listing appointments. And then there's Hugh, who's doing the same. He's kind of taking on clients that I don't have the time to serve properly. So we set it up right at the very beginning that he and I will be working things together, or working clients together, so that they know exactly what to expect and who to reach and how things are going to go. And frankly, we've been working together for many years now. I think Jen's been with me for 7+ years now, and Hugh's been with me for 3. So
it's basically admin, support, marketing, admin, everything behind the desk. And
correct.
You are you're the licensed agents, or active.
Correct, right. And then we have an almost full-time virtual assistant who does a lot of our, web marketing and maintaining websites, and, keeping posts going on a timely manner on Facebook. She has my Facebook logins. She posts real estate stuff to my Facebook page for me. And she's just a machine. She just keeps things going and helps manage databases and scrubbing data and getting correct phone numbers. And I mean, it's pretty insane what she does. And the thing is, I've never met her. She's been with me for like 5 years. I've never met her.
Well, you've met her, just not in person.
You're right. There you go. Exactly right.
Yeah, we have.
And then I actually have a copywriter as well. So anytime copy has to be written for a listing or an ad campaign or whatever, I've got a professional copywriter doing it. And I'm a fairly good writer as well. So like he'll send me something and I'll just tweak it a little bit. But I want to make sure no matter what happens, that it's my voice. Everything has to be my voice and my look and my voice and my look. It doesn't go out if it's not.
That's huge. So you've got how many you've got two full-time admins, one's virtual, and then you've got another agent, and then you've got another copywriter. It sounds like he's part-time, or he's like a more of a
he's, by the job. Anytime we send him something, we give him so much work that it's like turned around like that.
Nice.
So, there's no way I could do all this on my own. Whenever Jen might go on vacation or something, I'm like, what do you mean I have to like figure out how to make the photos look right on a virtual tour? Mind you, I used to do all that, but it's a good reminder to me when I don't have somebody there doing something for me of like what they are still doing and what I have not needed to do because I've gotten the help behind me to take that off my plate.
Exactly. What would you say, what's the difference between someone, the top 1% of real estate agents and everybody else?
I would think it's just a belief that this is just how it is. It's just how it is. I mean, my phone rings routinely. That's just how it is. I sell a $2.5 million house. That's just how it is. They want to list their, $2 million house with me. That's just how it is. The phone just rings. Like, that's how it is. Now, mind you, I do all this stuff to keep that happening, but I just expect it at this point.
Yeah.
It's not like some big surprise if a piece of business crosses my desk. That's just how it is.
There's a level of confidence that keeps that going and that clients actually look for, but you can't fake it.
I think so. Yeah, you can't fake it. I mean, there's been times where, I haven't been so well heeled and maybe it smelled on my breath, where I was like, you have to close. What do you mean you can't close on Friday? Like, this is a problem, or now I'm like, oh, that $2.7 million deal may not close at all. Well, that kind of sucks, but okay.
We'll make it happen, right? But
Yeah,
you know what's next. You know what, the solution, the world's not ending. That's what we're here for, because we will make it happen.
Exactly right. We solve problems. For real, we solve problems. And I think that's the whole thing. So, like going back to the sale behind you, they bought a house around the corner and we were at the final walkthrough and there were some issues at the other house they bought. And I was there, and she just did not want to have any confrontation. And he's a CEO and he's like, I'm ready, and they literally went around the corner behind the bushes and had a fight about it. And I'm like, not on my watch. This is not happening on my watch. I like raced right over there and I'm like, let me handle this for you. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, please let me handle this for you. You don't have to get involved here. I will take care of this for you and we'll get this worked out. And then I looked at him. I'm like, how much do you want? He's like, 5,000. I'm like, no problem. And I walked to the other end of the pool. And now I'm having a conversation with the listing agent who's on the phone, with the seller. And it's like, okay, 5,000, like done. Right. And again, is that magnanimous? Is that like, oh my gosh, like you're the only person in the world who's ever done that? No, but that was the 11th hour with these people. And that's the final note they're going to remember about me. Like I went to the mat for them, even when she was uncomfortable and she didn't want the confrontation. I didn't make it confrontational, of course, but I also took care of her. She would have rather had the $5,000 than not. Let's be real, and as long as she didn't have to engage in that confrontation, she felt protected. So I think that we have to really remember that we have to really be there to the bitter end with these people. We can't like do all this amazing stuff for months and weeks and hours and days. And then at the very end, just trip up a little and not be incredible for them all the way through.
It's like, as an agent, the last impression is the lasting impression. And what's so funny about that is like, well, I got paid, right? I'm done. But they're just want your lasting impression, your ongoing future of your business and career.
And I tell that to my team all the time. I'm like, we have to go to the very, very end, and sometimes it's walkthrough issues or or, you know, like the call a week after, like, oh my gosh, the hot water heater just blew up. Like, even if we can't fix it, just being there to like talk to them about it, I think is really important.
Well, that moment, first of all, that's where we're really helping people. And that moment is the opportunity. Like Michael Carucci says, it doesn't really end until the closing. He says when we close, that's when of course, we've served all the way through, and then it closes. We're just getting started. That's the kind
exactly right. Because if you're gone, you don't have that conversation of, oh, my sister's moving to the area, or, oh, we threw our first pool party, or, you know, you want to be involved in their lives as much as they'll let you, you know. But I think that if you developed a certain level of friendship with people, then it's just a natural extension of that. Like the former owner of this house, the one I went to the mat for at the pool of his new house, like, I like to have fun with people. He's Canadian. So I'm like, hey, have you seen the show Letterkenny? And he's like, no. I'm like, you have to watch it. Oh my gosh, you know. And so we're just having this discussion about a TV show, which is insane, right? And then
Schitt's Creek. I haven't seen that. What is that one called?
Letterkenny. Oh my gosh, it is so brilliant on another level. Now, mind you, if you're Canadian, it probably will make more sense to you, because they basically make fun of all these like Northern Canadian mannerisms, if you will, and ways of speech, and like things that they do in their daily lives. And so to me, it's just fun and interesting to watch, and the writing is so clever and the banter is insane and I love it, you know. But to a Canadian, they may see it at a whole nother level. So my point is, you know, this guy just sold his company for I don't know how many billions of dollars, and I'm telling him about a completely inappropriate like comedy, you know. And then the next time I see him, I'm like, did you watch it? What did you think? And he's like, oh my God, it was so funny. And my son is now repeating all the lines. And, you know, I mean,
our clients are people too.
Yeah.
Duh. All right, final three questions. We've got 3 minutes. So maybe I think we can stretch out to 5 more to fit in final three. But final three, number one, I don't even remember these because it's been so long since you've been on the show. Don't get nervous. It's okay. You'll have good answers.
I know I need to start looking. Okay. I've got one answer because I know one of your questions. Okay.
What has been what is your latest, most resourceful tool in your success? And it can be technology or something you do or a way you meet people or a way you win clients. It's become a much broader question probably than the last time you were on. It's fun to see how people interpret
it. So I mean, I think at the baseline, it's really just digging in deeper with people. But if you call that a tool, I don't know. One of the things I've started to have a little bit of fun with is telling the story of a sale. And if nothing more, I've kind of stolen it from other agents that I see. They post every single sale they've had. And I'm like, well, why not? You know, so I'm, you know, when something just goes under contract or something's closing, I tell the story.
Yeah.
You know, this is closing today. You know, I met these people on my website and they were originally looking at this, but then we switched and went here, you know, and I'm equally capable to advise both in the condo sector and in the single family homes. And so I'm just telling a story of the client and trying to show my value. So I think what I'm trying to do is to open doors to my business to people that might be like, oh yeah, I get that, or that's what I'm thinking about doing, or, you know, because people don't necessarily know what we're doing, and not that people really care, but if they're at all interested or if it's something that could be useful to them, that's when they care, right? So I think that's going to prove quite fruitful. And I've done even like partner markets pieces where, you know, I present a property in another market and just say, hey, if you're looking in Atlanta or anywhere else, you know, please reach out. It'd be my pleasure to introduce you. And I did that with some of our kind of vacation home areas in the Washington area, the Virginia countryside, the Delaware beaches, Annapolis. And my clients are actually calling me now, like, hey, who's your guy there? Or who's your woman there? And so I'm able to make referrals just because I put it out there that, you know, I've got these people that I trust in these different markets.
When you're putting you're not just posting it, you're bringing a story to it.
Correct. Yeah.
Next question, book. What is the book we have to read that you haven't told us about before?
I haven't told you about this one before. So right prior to the pandemic, kicking in. Like I was listening, I listen these days because I can listen and garden or listen and walk my dogs or listen and drive. It's called essentialism.
Oh, essentialism. I've heard, but I've heard that one recently. I don't remember who, but
It's so good. I should know the author. I was actually just looking it up. Sorry. Is it under music? Entertainment. I consider books entertainment, apparently. Let's see.
Somebody does. What was your takeaway? We'll find the author.
Yeah,
I can find the
where's
author.
my library? Here it is. Essentialism by Greg McKeown, McKeown. And the tagline is the disciplined pursuit of less. And it is not about minimalism. It is not about, living with, one piece of clothing or whatever, but it really talks and gives phenomenal examples so you can see how it truly applies to your own thinking about the choices we make. How many things do we say yes to in a day? What things should we say no to? How to say no? Understanding that if we say yes to this, we're by default saying no to that, and just being mindful about our choices. He doesn't tell us what to say yes to or no to. It all has to come from what's important to us. And it also goes through like the physical things in your life, like the clothes in your closet and why you might hold on to something you haven't worn for 9 years. So he puts all that into perspective, like, well, you paid $2,000 for it. That's why you're not letting it go. It's called sunk cost bias. I spent all this money on this. I've got to keep it. But it's like, you didn't pick it for 9 years. Get rid of it.
Houses are the same way. Sunk cost bias. Really. Right now they're not. But in former markets they have been.
Right. So I listened to that like literally 5 or 6 times, and I was on an absolute tear through this house. I was truly getting rid of stuff that was in our way. And I was just fixing things and making real decisions about what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to get rid of. And I had all my sources for donating. I was on a roll.
I'm dying to hear, how do you apply that to your business now? Essentially.
I think you have to. So right now, let's be honest. So I know this sounds snotty, and I don't mean to sound snotty, but I'm trying to focus on higher end clients. I'll be honest with you. That's just the truth, right? So when I get a referral from another agent or even from a client, and it's somebody like it's $700,000, I now have a rule that I don't take them myself. I don't say no to them, but I partner with Hugh. So I'm able to keep his docket full, and I'm able to serve that client at the highest level because Hugh's my mini me, and he speaks like I do, and he has a lot of the same experience that I do. And if he's not sure about something, we're conversing about it. So I know that client is going to be really well cared for. It's just not going to be by me only. Right? I've got somebody helping me. Everyone wins.
Hugh gets more business, client is better served, they still get your advice, and you're utilizing your skills in the best way possible for everybody that touches your life.
Exactly right. So I think you have to use it in your business. And even if you're not like overflowing with clients and that isn't your challenge, it's like, well, where do you spend your time? I mean, you could decide like, oh, I'm going to go in and spend 3 hours on my email and just clean out my inbox. Or you could say, hey, I sold 5 houses last year. Maybe I should just get on the phone with them and see how they're doing, and, be listening and send them a thoughtful gift when I'm done with the conversation.
This is my touch of advice, even though I'm the interviewer and not the interviewee, but like experience station to experience station, essentialism comes in like there are plenty of clients, but when you're trying to take them all and you have none, you get none. When you hone in on what am I good at, who am I going to serve, and you learn that and you serve that, you get more clients than you can handle. Essentialism actually creates abundance.
I completely agree. And so again, it's not about saying no to everything, and it's not about minimalism at all. It's the disciplined pursuit of less. And for me, less tends to be less noise, less clutter, less confusion, where I can truly focus on what's super important to me. Like if I were running around with a rental and not jumping in the pool with my kids, I would be mad at myself. I can't blame the client. I would have said yes to the client, and then I would just have been mad at myself, and I would feel like I'm cheating my kids out of time spent with me, and I'd be cheating myself out of time spent with them because I said yes to something that I really didn't have my heart into.
Last question. If there's one thing we're going to remember and forget everything else from this conversation, what is it? What would you have it be?
I would say to ask the next great question.
Have you read that book?
No.
You've got to read it. There's a book.
I will.
I'll send it to you. It's something about the most beautiful question. I think that's the name of it. I just started it. And then of course, now I've got to read Essentialism. Ask the next great question.
Yeah.
Great advice.
I mean, that's the only way that, it's easy to be like, oh, you don't want a financing contingency. Okay. And you quickly move on, but you're like, wait a minute, like, what does that mean to you? Can explain this to me? Like, let me help you out and let me help you understand this. And, would that be a problem for you if, and so asking the next great question, and it doesn't even always have to be about business, it could, I think maybe the very best next great question is when you're talking to somebody about themselves and their lives, rather than, how are you? How are you? Oh, you're fabulous. I'm so glad to hear it. Like everybody gets that. It's like, that's not hard.
But it's all in asking the right questions.
And listening and going, hey, I think there's a question after that.
What's that?
And then listening to what they say. And then, if you're actually listening rather than thinking about the next thing you're going to say, you can actually listen to them and then ask another question behind that. And I think, I don't know, like, I think that is literally like them opening their emotional bank account and you just pouring pictures of yourself into it. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know how many people like really go the second question deep. Well, and if you want people to think about you, they need to remember you. And people tend to remember the people that actually take an active interest in them.
Asking the next great question. I feel like most agents come into this business saying, how can I get you to hire me? Not a good question. How can I help you? I'd say that's a good question.
Or how can I add value to your process?
And your life.
Yeah, where's your value as a participant in their life? Right?
Yep.
I mean, you could be great at this, but like maybe not that. Like, where's your value? And I think you should know your value. And again, maybe if you're a brand new agent, you haven't quite figured that out yet, but get after it. Figure out what you're good at.
Great. Right. Yeah. Jeff, thank you so much. Everybody,
of course.
With TTR Sotheby's International Realty in Washington, D.C. and surrounding Virginia and
Maryland as well. Yep.
Thank you. So good to see you.
You're welcome, Jere. Wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. If you like this episode, please share it with friends. To find more episodes, search Jere Metcalf Podcast on any platform for podcasts, or go to JereMetcalfPodcast.com. That's JereMetcalf